After addressing the impending resignation of Justice John Paul Stevens this afternoon at the White House, President Obama turned the bully pulpit to a far, far more sober subject.
Because mining is a tradition that's often passed down through generations, it's not uncommon to see an entire family choose this line of work. And sadly, when a tragedy like this occurs, it's also not uncommon to lose almost an entire family all at once. I spoke to some surviving members of one such family on Wednesday. This week, Tim Davis and two of his nephews, Josh, age 25, and Corey, age 20, were killed in the explosion in the Upper Big Branch mine. Rescuers have reported that Tim and his two nephews were all found together. Two other members of their families that worked in the mine were able to escape unharmed. Before he left for the mine on Monday, Josh wrote a letter for his girlfriend and young daughter. And in it he said, "If anything happens to me, I'll be looking down from heaven at you all. I love you. Take care of my baby. Tell her that Daddy loves her. She's beautiful. She's funny. Just take care of my baby girl." Reflecting on that letter and the losses she endured in just 1 week, Josh's mother, Pam, simply said, "It is just West Virginia. When something bad happens, we come together. When something bad happens, we come together." Through tragedy and heartache, that's the spirit that has sustained this community and this country for over 200 years. And as we pray for the souls of those that we've lost and the safe return of those who are missing, we are also sustained by the words of the psalm that are particularly poignant right now. Those words read, "You, O Lord, keep my lamp burning. My God turns my darkness into light." Thank you very much.
President Obama has asked for a preliminary report on what went wrong at the Upper Big Branch mine and why next week. Meanwhile, rescue workers are on the fourth attempt to find four missing miners from Monday's deadly blast. The blast killed at least 25 people. Officials just concluded a news conference saying they were optimistic that they will know the fate of the four miners who remain missing by midnight tonight. Earlier this morning, rescue teams were forced to retreat from the mine because they encountered smoke from what they think was an underground fire. Before aborting the search 5 miles into the mine and 1,000 feet underground, the crew confirmed that the miners who were missing were not in one of the two chambers, airtight chambers stocked with food and water and oxygen. Rescuers are trying to make it to the second airtight chamber tonight. They are within 2,000 feet of the chamber. If the miners are not there, the chances of their survival are frankly considered extremely, extremely slim. Funeral services were held today for some of the miners killed in the explosion on Monday. Among those remembered was 61-year-old Benny Willingham. He was just 5 weeks away from retiring. As the mining community copes with this loss, the company operating this mine is under fire again for comments that its CEO made just last year about safety rules.
They're very difficult to comply with. There's so many of the laws that are, if you will, nonsensical from an engineering or a coal mining viewpoint.
Mr. Blankenship's Upper Big Branch mine has appealed or is delinquent on 21 major fines worth more than $500,000. Mr. Massey Energy and other coal mining operators still owe the government more than $90 million in unpaid fines for safety violations over just the past 3 years. Coal may not cost much money, but it really, really, really does not come cheap. I'll be right back. A group of pastors in Ohio a few weeks ago filed an IRS complaint against the members of Congress who live at the C Street house. The ethics watchdog crew then filed an ethics complaint against those same lawmakers. The allegation of both complaints is the same. It's that the C Street house, which is run by the secretive religious group The Family, offers its congressmen tenants rent at below market rates. The implication, of course, is that the difference between what the tenants are paying and what the landlord could reasonably demand represents a subsidy, which is a gift or a contribution, and the public should know who is donating what to our elected officials. It ought to fit the rules of what you're allowed to gift to an elected official, and frankly, those elected officials ought to be paying taxes on it as income. It has been reported, and not refuted, that a room at C Street, a room in the well-appointed luxury building plus amenities including maid service, just a short walk from the Capitol, is being charged to these members of Congress at a rate of $950 a month. That was as recent as last year. Tennessee Congressman Zach Wamp is the latest C Street resident to react with indignation to the charge that his rent at C Street is anything but totally above board. Mr. Wamp told a hometown news service called the Tennessee Report, quote, "It's a totally bogus claim. To allege we're not paying market value is simply not analyzing the market. It is the most ridiculous allegation and claim that I have seen." Simply not analyzing the market, he says. Analyzing the... How could one do that nowadays anyway? The internets. I know. Let's have a look. All right, comparing similar digs in the same neighborhood at C Street. Okay, at Craigslist, you can find a one-bedroom English basement apartment and utilities on C Street for $1,750 a month. Now, you don't have to share a bathroom like the C Street guys do, but you also don't have luxe common areas, conference space, maid service, or interns working for you as servants. Also, English basement is just a nice Craigslisty way of saying this apartment is only partially above ground. And, for what it's worth, that's almost double the rent of what we think the C Street guys are paying. Let's look some more, Analyzing the market. There's also this one that you can live on C Street here for $1,420 a month. That's only 50% more than a room at C Street, as far as we know. Of course, there's no maid, no servants, and not only no other really nice rooms, but no other rooms at all. This is a studio, just one room. In all fairness, we did just one search. Our results are not comprehensive. Thankfully, Senator Sam Brownback of Kansas took the same defensive position as Congressman Wamp. He sent us his own research showing what anyone can get for the same amount of rent that he paid at C Street. And yes, you can score a room for even less than $950 a month. For example, as Senator Brownback points out, for $600 you can live in Bowie, Maryland, which is lovely. But if you work on Capitol Hill, it only seems fair to mention that this apartment is in Maryland, in Bowie, Maryland, which Google Maps says is roughly a 30-minute commute to the United States Capitol by car, as opposed to the C Street house, which is 3 blocks from the Capitol. 3 blocks. For $650, Senator Brownback also suggests you can live in a basement bedroom in Vienna, Virginia, which happens to be the last stop on that part of the metro. It's outside the Beltway in Virginia, roughly, again, about a half-hour commute by car, or the full length of the Orange Line on the metro system. The C Street house, again, just 3 blocks away from work. You could crawl there if you were drunk. According to Senator Brownback's search, for $640 a month, you can also share an apartment with a stranger in Springfield, Virginia, which is, again, outside the Beltway, a good ways from Capitol Hill. And it should also be noted for this listing that, in this case, you would have to be a, quote, older woman. So there you have it. Thank you to Congressman Wamp and Senator Brownback for directing us to the data, to the hard, cold facts about whether or not you guys have been paying market rent at the mansion, or whether you've in fact been getting an unreported and probably illegal big fat rent subsidy, we're guessing, from the family. We stand corrected. I mean, we stand correct. Nice try, gentlemen, but who's paying your rent? Finally tonight, when he woke up this morning, he probably assumed that he was the most prominent member of government to announce his retirement today. Thanks to Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens, he was wrong. Congressman Bart Stupak made himself famous in the past year for almost derailing health reform. Today at a press conference in his North Michigan district, the Democrat announced that he would not be running for re-election this year.
Last night and early this morning, I informed Democratic leaders and key supporters that I would not seek re-election to Congress. Now it's time to spend a little more time with my wife, Lori, who we've been married for 36 years and whose love and commitment has sustained me through the years, with our son, Ken, and his family, and my extended family and friends.
According to the Washington Post, Mr. Stupak made the final decision at the Butler-Michigan State game at the Final Four in Indianapolis last weekend. Congressman Stupak served 9 terms representing Michigan's Upper Peninsula and some of the Lower Peninsula, too. And in that time, he argues he's given Democrats a good chance of holding onto his seat.
I think we've tilted this district. I've seen the Republican field, and obviously I'm not impressed.
Stupak says that threatening calls made to him following the health reform vote had no impact on his decision. He also does not attribute his retirement decision to being named in the ethics and tax complaints about his former status as an apparently subsidized resident of the C Street house in Washington, D.C. Honestly, I was highly critical of Congressman Stupak's decision to try to hang up health reform based on his false assertion that health reform would allow federal funding for abortions. I still believe that the congressman was both wrong and disingenuous in that crusade. That said, Congressman Stupak is a dedicated, lifelong public servant who is a respected and popular man in his district and among his colleagues for good reason. I personally, and all the staff here at this show that has been so hard on him, really do wish Congressman Stupak all the best in his retirement. That does it for us tonight. We will see you again on Monday. At that point, we'll be back in New York, and the people of Bowie, Maryland will have tarred and feathered me for mispronouncing the name of their town. You can email us at rachel@msnbc.com. We hope you have a great weekend. Good night.